My name is Agent Warren, and in 1983, I was sent to Caledonia, a small island nation in Southeast Asia, to investigate the murder of an American citizen, Professor William Wilsberg. On paper, the assignment seemed routine. But the moment I stepped foot in Caledonia, I knew this was anything but simple. Wilsberg wasn't the kind of man who made enemies. He was a respected economist, known for his work on global markets and economic theory. Yet, someone had gone to great lengths to kill him. His body had been found in an abandoned warehouse, miles away from the university where he taught. The cause of death? Strangulation. The crime scene was grim. When I arrived, the air inside the warehouse was damp and stale. Light barely filtered through the dirty windows, casting long shadows on the concrete floor. In the center of the room was a chalk outline where Wilsberg's body had been found. Surrounding it were scattered papers and overturned furniture. Inspector Malik Liran, the local officer in charge, didn't waste time with pleasantries. Strangulation, he said flatly, nodding toward the scene. But there's more. We found this in his throat. He handed me an evidence bag. Inside was a crumpled piece of paper, stained with blood. It was covered in strange symbols, writing I didn't recognize. What is this? I asked. Old Caledonian, Liran replied. The language hasn't been used in decades. Only a handful of people can still read it. We're working on a translation. I studied the paper, but it gave me no answers. Do we know why he was here? Liran shook his head. You'd have to ask the dead. I didn't like his tone, but he wasn't wrong. That night, as I reviewed Wilsberg's file at my hotel, I couldn't shake the feeling that something wasn't right. His death felt too deliberate, too calculated. What was he working on that made him a target? My thoughts were interrupted by the sound of paper sliding under my door. I opened it, but the hallway was empty. Inside the envelope was a note, written in shaky English. They already know you're here. The professor was just the beginning. At that moment, I realized I wasn't just investigating a murder. I was walking into something much bigger, and much more dangerous. Make sure to hit the subscribe button so you don't miss any inspiring stories I share. The note under my door made one thing clear. This wasn't just a murder investigation. Whoever killed Wilsberg knew I was here, and they were already watching. The next morning, I went to Wilsberg's apartment. It was a modest place in a quiet part of the city. From the outside, it looked ordinary, but the moment I stepped inside, I could tell Wilsberg had been working on something much larger than his lectures. Books and papers were stacked everywhere, on shelves, the desk, even the floor. His notes referenced economic theory, politics, and something else, the slaves of the fog. That phrase was scribbled over and over again, underlined and circled in his handwriting. I didn't know what it meant, but it clearly mattered to Wilsberg. As I sifted through the chaos, I found something. A small black notebook wedged under a pile of loose papers. The notebook was written in code. At first glance, it looked like gibberish, but one word kept repeating throughout, mist. It was circled multiple times, sometimes underlined. I froze. Mist wasn't just a random word. It was the code name for a classified project I'd only heard whispers about. Whatever Wilsberg had uncovered, it was big. I slipped the notebook into my bag and left the apartment, but as soon as I stepped outside, I felt it. Someone was watching me. Across the street, a man in a dark suit leaned against a lamppost, pretending to read a newspaper. He wasn't local. His demeanor, his clothing, everything about him screamed outsider. I didn't acknowledge him, but my instincts told me he wasn't there by accident. That evening, I got a call. Agent Warren. The voice on the other end was shaky, like the caller was afraid of being overheard. Who is this? My name is Alex Wren. I was working with Wilsberg before he died, the voice said. We need to meet. Why should I trust you? Because I know why they killed him, Alex replied. And if you don't meet me, you'll be next. The line went dead. At midnight, I met Alex on a deserted street corner. He was young, no older than his mid-20s, his hands trembling as he clutched his jacket. Wilsberg wasn't just teaching here, he said. He was writing a book that could expose everything. Expose what? I asked. The Caledonian government works with the mafia, Alex whispered. They use them for smuggling drugs, weapons, even assassinations. Wilsberg had proof. He found connections between the mafia, the government, and even U.S. officials. Why would the U.S. care? I pressed. Because some of your government officials are profiting from it, Alex said. Wilsberg thought if he exposed it, he could force the world to act. Alex reached into his pocket and handed me a cassette tape. This is Wilsberg's last message. It has everything: names, dates, deals. If this gets out, it could bring the regime down. Before I could respond, headlights lit up the street. They found me, Alex whispered. Run. What about you? I asked. There's no time. Just go. I sprinted into the night, the sound of gunfire ringing out behind me. I didn't stop running until I was sure no one was following me. My chest burned, my legs ached, but my mind was racing. Alex was gone, and now I was the one holding the evidence that had gotten Wilsberg and Alex killed. I ducked into an alley and crouched behind a dumpster, pulling the cassette tape from my pocket. My hands trembled as I inserted it into my tape recorder and hit play. For a moment, there was only static. Then Wilsberg's voice came through, calm but heavy with urgency. If you're hearing this, it means I'm dead. My name is William Wilsberg, and what I'm about to tell you is the reason I was murdered. I leaned closer, hanging on every word. Caledonia isn't just corrupt, it's controlled. The government here works hand in hand with the mafia. They smuggle drugs and weapons, launder money, and eliminate anyone who gets in their way. But it doesn't stop here. Wilsberg paused, as if choosing his words carefully. The United States knows. They've known for years. But Caledonia is a strategic ally. As long as the regime supports U.S. interests, officials in Washington turn a blind eye. Some of them even profit from the arrangement. My stomach tightened as his words sank in. I've documented everything: names, transactions, accounts. It's all in my notes. If this tape survives, it's up to you to make sure the truth comes out. Please, don't let them bury this. The recording ended, leaving me alone in the silence. Wilsberg hadn't just been silenced to protect Caledonia. He'd been silenced to protect powerful people far beyond its borders. I knew I couldn't stay out in the open. There was only one person left I could trust: Josh. Josh was a former operative for the regime, someone who had defected after seeing too much. If anyone could help me escape, it was him. Josh's safe house was in a crumbling neighborhood near the harbor. When he opened the door, his face paled. "Warren? What the hell are you doing here?" "They're after me," I said, stepping inside. "Alex is dead. I have Wilsberg's tape. I need to get out of the country." Josh ran a hand through his hair. "You don't understand. They won't just kill you, they'll make you disappear. But I know a way out." We left under cover of darkness, slipping through back alleys and side streets. Josh guided me toward the harbor, where a cargo ship bound for Hong Kong was set to leave. Halfway there, we heard it, the roar of engines. "They're patrolling," Josh whispered. "We have to move." We ducked into an alley, but it was too late. Headlights flooded the narrow street, and the sound of boots echoed in the distance. "Run!" Josh hissed, shoving me toward a back exit. "What about you?" I demanded. "I'll hold them off," he said, drawing a pistol from his jacket. "Get to the ship. Don't stop." I hesitated for only a second before bolting toward the docks. The sound of gunfire rang out behind me, but I didn't look back. By the time I reached the harbor, the ship was already preparing to leave. I bribed a dock worker with the last of my cash and climbed aboard just as the gangway was being pulled up. As the ship drifted into the open sea, I stood on the deck, looking back at the distant lights of the city. Alex, Josh, Wilsberg, they'd all died for this truth. Now it was up to me to make sure their sacrifices weren't in vain. The cargo ship carried me to Hong Kong, but the weight of the tape and Wilsberg's message stayed with me every step of the way. I knew what I had to do: bring the evidence to my superiors at the Federal Security Agency and let the truth finally come to light. But when I arrived back in the U.S., everything unraveled. I handed over the tape, the notes, and every scrap of evidence I'd collected. I expected outrage, action, a plan to bring the corrupt regime to justice. Instead, I was met with silence. "This is bigger than you, Warren," my boss said as he locked the tape away in a secure cabinet. "Caledonia is a strategic ally. We can't risk destabilizing the region over this. So we just let them get away with it?" I asked, disbelief and anger burning in my chest. He looked at me, expressionless. "Sometimes sacrifices are necessary. Let it go. Let it go." I left that meeting feeling more powerless than I ever had before. Alex, Josh, Wilsberg, they'd all died for the truth. But in the end, it didn't matter. Politics had buried their sacrifice. It's been years since then, and the tape remains locked away, collecting dust. But I haven't forgotten. The truth might be buried, but it's not gone. One day, I'll make sure the world knows what happened in Caledonia. One day, their sacrifices won't be in vain. I hope you enjoyed this story. I'm sure you'll also love the next one. Click on the video on the screen right now, and don't forget to subscribe if you want to see more videos like this in the future. Thank you for watching until the end. See you soon.